Question, do we have a quorum?
We have a quorum.
Ladies and gentlemen, the way the meeting is going to work, we're going to go through the items. Those who are in support of an item will come up and have 3 minutes each to speak. And then those who are in opposition of the item will come up and have 3 minutes to speak. And then after the opposition speaks, the developer or whoever the individual who has been selected to speak on the actual item can come back and rebut anything that's been said by the opposition. Ladies and gentlemen, we only have 6 items on the agenda. We're going to try to get everybody out of here as quickly as possible. So council members, let's go ahead and take case 824, item 6, 102 Friends Street to rezone property from commercial alcoholic beverage bar and lounge to commercial gambling located on the south side of Friends Street, west of St. Philip Street, Council District 10, Commission Action 9-0. Is there anyone here wishing to speak on item 6? Councilmember Coleman.
Yes, sir. So moved.
Motion to approve by Councilman Coleman, seconded by Councilmember Moak. Item 6 has been approved. Item 5, case 7-24545 South Foster Drive, to rezone property from light commercial transition and commercial alcoholic beverage to light commercial located on the east side of South Foster Drive, Government Street, Council District 7. Motion to approve 9-0. Is there anyone here wishing to speak on the item? Motion to approve by the chair. Is there a second? So moved by Councilmember second. Moved by the chair. Seconded. Councilmember Moak. Any objections? Item has been approved. Item 3, RV 124 Tigerland Acres revocation. No hearing before the Planning Commission required. UDC 363. Pastor Hunter, you did write that you want to speak on this item. I don't think this is the item that you want to speak on. I think it's item 4, correct? Is there anyone else for item 3? We go now to council members. Is there a motion? So moved by Councilmember Moak, seconded by Councilmember Rocker. Any objections? Item 3 has been approved. And we go to item 2, 7605 and 7607, Tom Drive, to rezone property from heavy industrial M2 to light commercials, LC1, located on the north side of Tom Drive, east of Wooddale Court, District 6. Dunn Jr., motion to approve. 9-0 was the commission action. Is there anyone here wishing to speak on the item?
No.
Councilmember Dunn Jr., so moved, seconded by the chair. Any objections? Item 2 has been approved. We now go, ladies and gentlemen, to item 4, TA 1-24 Forensic Facility Unified Development Code Amendment to revise. Want to do future BR? Let's knock it out. Item 1, PA, which requires 8 votes, PA 16-23 future BR update, amending the future BR to 20-year comprehensive land use and development plan for the city of Baton Rouge and parish of East Baton Rouge. Commission action to approve 7-0. Is there anyone here wishing to speak on the item? Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and members of the council. Here to give a quick overview of Future BR. Future BR is a comprehensive plan that guides growth and development across East Baton Rouge Parish. This is a 5-year update, the second 5-year update to Future BR, and is subject to over a year and a half of staff work and department resources. With 9 community open houses, several presentations to various groups, over 125 people attended these meetings across the parish. We received 110 comments. 410 survey results were submitted, bringing the total number of people that participated in East Baton Rouge Parish to over 500. An overwhelming majority of comments and feedback we received resulted in changes to the plan. Other changes involved eliminating duplicate and out-of-date material. In addition, we examined every parcel in the parish to ensure that appropriate land use designations were placed on the future land use map. I'd like to recognize Jeffrey Leuenberger, our manager of Long Range. Him and his staff need to be congratulated for the effort and the hard work they put into this plan and the work itself. Also, IS Services created numerous maps and updated GIS data throughout this planning process. Also, I'd like to thank all of our 34 lead agencies providing updates to the plan and the action items as part of this 5-year update. At a recent previous council meeting, we discussed this item, but the council took no action because of concerns at the time raised on potential rail stations being considered. Subsequently, passenger rail was shown as part of the regional transportation map contained as part of Future BR document. As a result, our office reached out to the council both individually and collectively with the summary and background of the history of regional rail references in Future BR, offering to meet and discuss potential solutions. I've met with many members of council since then to discuss options and/or modifications to the regional transportation map contained as part of future BR. I'd like to thank those council members that have provided additional input and direction to improve the overall access to future transportation systems and how it works to connect to the local transportation network. We've received comments and support from the Baton Rouge North Economic Development District and also from the Civic Association, Federation of Civic Associations. I'm here to answer any questions, and I appreciate your support on this item.
Councilmember, anyone here wish to speak on the item? Councilmember Dunn.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve with two amendments. The first amendment is to amend the regional transportation map on page 10 in the transportation element to extend the proposed regional rail to North Baton Rouge with bus rapid transit connection to the Baton Rouge Metro Airport. The second amendment is to amend the regional rail write-up on page 45 to include and in North Baton Rouge.
I second that motion. Any objections to the motion? Item 1 has been approved. We now go to item 4. Councilmember Moore.
Yeah, to Jeff and your crew, again, congratulations, great job on this. I know it was very hard. Thank y'all, and all, like he said, with all the city parish employees and the different departments and everyone working together, I think we got a great future BR. Thank y'all.
Item 4, TA 1-24, Forensic Facility, Unified Development Code Amendment to revise Chapter 9, Use Regulations, and Chapter 19, Definitions to conditionally allow to define secured medical facilities with heavy commercial zoning districts. Ryan, you want to speak before our guest? So what we're going to do is have our Planning Commission Director come up and give us a little information about the item on the agenda, Ryan, and then we'll take some comments from those who are in support. Then we'll take comments from those who are opposed. And then we'll go back and let anyone who is in support of the item have a final 3 minutes. Now, with that being said, I do recognize that this item is coming from the Planning Commission, so it'll just be 3 minutes for those in support and 3 minutes for those in opposition. Ryan.
Thank you. This item is a text amendment dealing with forensic facilities. This amendment would, as written, would revise Chapter 9 use regulations and also Chapter 19 definitions to establish regulations for forensic facilities. A little background and history. The Metropolitan Council requested a study to amend the Unified Development Code to put in place distance limitations for forensic psychiatric hospitals on February 22nd, 2023. The study was presented to the council in August same year, providing research, additional background, and 4 options for consideration were presented in that study. Later that month, on September 27th, the Metropolitan Council requested the Planning Commission office to move forward with drafting options that were consistent with option 4 in that study, drafting proposed policy regulations for consideration related to forensic psychiatric hospitals to create a new use with a correctional forensic component allowed in predetermined zoning districts, while also establishing distance limitations and providing visual screening. This amendment, as written and presented, defines forensic facility in Chapter 19 consistent with the state definition. It also defines hospitals and adds clarification on other medical land use types. It introduces a new forensic facility use for discretionary approval, which would be part of a major conditional use permit with heavy commercial 1 zoning and also heavy commercial 2 zoning districts. It also goes on to establish distance requirements of 1,000 feet for forensic facility uses, prescribing separation from residential dwellings, schools, and parks, in addition to requiring visual screening and buffers from the street and abutting properties. And I'll be happy to answer any questions later on.
Thank you very much. We'll take those who are in favor of the item to come first. Each individual has 3 minutes. I don't have anyone who signed up to speak in favor, but if there's anyone in the audience who is in support of the item as it has been written, please come up. Please come up. No one in support, okay. Anyone who,
That's my whole District 5. Yeah, you in support of it. It is written, yes. I don't think they understand
Come on
what
down.
they meant.
come on down.
Point of clarification. So what he's asking is, anybody in District 5 who is in favor of the 1,000 feet distance limitation, the screens there and the heavy commercial as well as the M-Cup, please come to the mic and speak.
State your name and address for the record, please.
Cherie Smith, 602 Sandra Drive, Baker, 70714. I'm sorry, I wasn't understanding
Let me say it this
the
way.
procedure, so I want to make sure that I'm up here at the right point in time.
Let me say
because
it this way. If you are an individual who doesn't want a facility like this anywhere in the city, then you come up and speak.
I'm in the right place at the right
Okay.
time.
All right. Say your name and address for the record.
Cherie Smith, 602 Sandra Drive, Baker, Louisiana. I'm here representing the Forest Heights PTO. I have two children that are there, also other parents, grandparents here. So I want to just say first, thanks, Councilman Hurst, for putting this forward. We had a meeting a couple months ago opposing it. I strongly ask the committee to approve this because our children deserve, and our children, our teachers, administrators, the communities in which they're proposing to put these types of facilities it's going to bring all kinds of problems and exposure to potential threats that they're not prepared to handle. I think that something like this should be taken to Livingston Parish, where there is a lot of farmland and room for people to escape and, chase them out there, not in neighborhoods, not near businesses, not in communities where people are living and thriving and trying to survive, particularly children. So I strongly support it and hope that you all will approve this motion.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak on the item? Come on down. Pastor Hunter. You can come right after Pastor Hunter, sir.
First, let me just say that I am greet each one of you this evening, and we thank you for giving us this privilege to speak with you. And I'm actually reading from 9.4.5 of the section that speaks to the zoning that we're talking about. And what I want to make sure that is that section subsection A of that particular ordinance. It says that shall not be located in any recognized subdivision. And to my understanding, this particular amendment that you have tonight is speaking of heavily commercial areas. Is that correct? All right, and so what we are really, from my understanding of things and the families that are in the Glen Oaks community, we are seeking to make certain that no forensic facility would be located near Forest Heights Elementary School, which is one of the highest performing public schools that we have in the North Baton Rouge area. It's in the top 10 in the state in math and English and language arts. And so we are literally simply trying to make certain that the environment that we're seeking to maintain around that school is consistent with where they are now, and that the growth and development from those parents as well as students who are attending that school can be maintained, and their progress in developing educational excellence can be secure. I would say this and sit down, that whenever our children feel that they, either from direct or indirect influences, such as a facility of this nature, they are filled with anxiety. And anxiety, according to Jeff Nagel, causes the brain to produce a hormone called cortisol. Cortisol is a hormone that interferes with the child's ability to be attentive. So children are being identified as attention deficit disorders when actually it's just because of heightened anxiety, that they can be exposed to when they have anxiety with facilities that may not be conducive for our neighborhoods, or for that matter, being adjacent to schools. And that's what I came here to say tonight. I also believe that 1,000 feet limit is consistent and would help within any parish, I mean, anywhere in the parish, but I really was under the impression that this had to do with Forest Heights Elementary and North Baton Rouge. We are focusing 26 pastors with BFI to deal with education, to deal with jobs. We're sending counselors into the homes, and we literally believe that we want to be consistent about what's coming in to the community. And I appreciate this body for giving us an opportunity to speak tonight. And if we are not speaking of locating a forensic facility within a residential subdivision, I believe that Forest Heights would be okay. God bless you, and thank you, Mr. President, for giving me a privilege and other members of this body to speak with you tonight.
Thank you, Pastor. You went over 3 minutes, Pastor, but you're a preacher, so I was told not to interrupt the pastor when you're preaching. Yes, sir. Come on down, sir. State your name and address. Oh, ma'am, come on down. Anybody else? State your name and address for the record, right after the lovely lady.
My name is Dorothy Thomas. I live in Forest Heights, and I'm speaking for myself and my community and our parish. We does not want any forensic utility or whatever in our neighborhood. We don't want anything like that, any prisoners in our neighborhood. And this is not just for me. This is from all of our neighbors and people in the community. We don't want that kind of facility in our neighborhoods. We are elderly people. We have been out there all our lives, and we have no plan to move. We couldn't even if we wanted to, but we does not want any facility of that nature in our community or near our schools. And I would appreciate it if you all did not allow that to happen, because that is bad. I'm 82 years old. I don't have anywhere else to go. I want to lie down at night and sleep and want to be able to get up refreshed in the morning. So I'm asking you all not to let anything like that come into our community or our neighborhood.
Thank you, ma'am. Come on down, sir. State your name and address for the record.
Good afternoon. Alonzo Coleman, 7235 Perimeter Drive, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And I'm just here, and I would like to voice my opinion about it. I, with Miss Dorothy, has been living in the area quite a while, and on the street that I live on, it's probably at least 8 or 10 senior citizens that's much older than I am. And I'm 70 and over. So my thing is we have a problem in North Baton Rouge when we put something there to maintain it. You know, we build buildings and we put up a detention center some 60 or 70 years ago, I guess, and people just walk in and out of there now and create habits for the city. We put things out there that other people don't want, and then we don't maintain them. We don't need to put nothing else in the area unless the people's strongly supported and it's a positive input for the community. Like they talked about the school over there. It's one of the top-rated schools. They got the Glen Oaks High School over there as a magnet program, and they trying to make it better. We're trying to make the community better, and we just think this is a distraction, and we should not reverse anything to benefit someone that don't live in the area, not affected by it, that just want to come in and collect dollars. I thank you for this opportunity, and I hope y'all give it consideration. If you wouldn't want it in your backyard, don't put it in ours.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on the item? Come on down.
Thank you to the council. Forgive my tardiness. My name is Christopher Richard, 6040 Lanier Drive, president of the Glen Oaks Area Neighborhood Association. I can only imagine the residents have spoken against this, any facility within the borders of our community. But I wanted to read a letter that was from State Senator Regina Barrow. These are her words, and she apologizes for not being because of the legislative session. Dear esteemed members of the Metropolitan Council, I am writing in response to the feedback I received from my constituents regarding the proposed forensic psychiatric hospital that is in close proximity to the schools and neighborhoods. Unfortunately, due to the legislative session, I am unable to be there in person, but I want to ensure that the comments of the citizens I represent were heard and received. The citizens I represent do not support this measure. There is much that I would like to say, but due to time constraints, I am unable to do so. However, I am more than happy to answer any questions you may have. Please accept this letter as my position against my proposed expansion or permitting of a forensic psychiatric hospital in a subdivision or school. Thank you for your attention of this matter. Regina Barrow, State Senator, District 15, President Pro Tempore. Her words are an echo of what the residents want. We feel that this ordinance is necessary. This should be a common sense thing. You would not want that in any district in the East Baton Rouge Parish in any subdivision. So I'm not going to go up here and reiterate anything that is already said. All I can say is pray upon your good sense, your common decency, and please look into this banning any facilities like this in any residential area near schools. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Come on down. Those in opposition well, everybody who was just speaking was in favor of the item. I'm sorry, yeah.
My name is Franklin Brown, live at 6934 Modesta, Forest Heights Park. I don't need to come up here and echo anything else that anybody said. I just want my name to be on the record that I'm against this facility, being zoned to put over there. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Dale Flowers, 1777 America Street here in Baton Rouge. I stand in agreement with this proposal, and the wording of an industrial or commercial area is where this facility should be, not in a residential community. I think a great place for this facility would be within the Baton Rouge City Police Department. You have that whole women's hospital, and I'm sure they're not using all of that facility. I made this suggestion when the Bridge Center was brought up. I just think it'd be a great place to put this type of facility, and you've got police officers right there to ensure if something would go wrong, they're right there to take care of it. But it certainly should not be in a residential area in this city. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Anyone else in support of item 4? Anyone else in support of item 4? All right. Anyone in opposition of item 4 wishing to speak at this time? Anyone in opposition? We now go to Councilmember Dunn. Junior, that is.
Ryan, if you come up, please. I just want to bring a point of clarity because I've heard several speakers come up and reference the current facility that's operating in the Glen Oaks area. And it's my understanding, if my understanding is off, please clarify that this item will not affect the facility that's currently operating in the Glen Oaks area.
So certainly, Councilman, any new ordinance up for consideration would not affect any existing business that's legally operating. I've had that discussion with other council people, with the parish attorney's office. That would be, if they're legally licensed and operating now, they would be classified as a legal non-conforming use, allowed to continue.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak on the item? Council members. Councilmember Hudson.
Ryan, if you would come back real quick. The last speaker made an interesting point about this type of facility being at the Bridge Center or being at BRPD. As I understand the ordinance and the way it's written, with being 1,000 feet from a dwelling, this ordinance would actually rule out locating any kind of forensic facility at those two locations. Am I understanding that correct?
So the Bridge Center is not a true forensic facility. The forensic facilities
No, but I'm saying
are-
if you wanted to have a forensic facility there.
So it would have to meet the way it's defined. A forensic facility is a very specific use.
Right.
By definition, in the way this is drafted, it matches the state definition of a forensic facility, which requires a state license, and there's very specific criterias that's part of that, which this would apply to.
But being that it's within 1,000 feet of residential dwelling, it and the BRPD headquarters, a forensic facility would not be allowed to be in those locations, correct?
If this were our new facility and these regulations were approved as drafted tonight, that if it didn't meet this criteria, then it could not be located there, correct?
All right, thank you.
Councilmember Rocker.
Thank you all for coming out tonight for your comments. So some of the hard questions that have to be asked are the legal ones, and I agree with everything that everyone said here. But oftentimes on this body, with this council and the council before us, we'll have a ton of people come in and council members will make promises to the folks that sit out there and say, we're going to do this for you. We're going to make this happen, or we're going to keep this from happening. And then what happens years down the road, and it happened in my district before I was a council person in Magwoods, it happened in Mr. Goday's district with Aztec Cove, is these people sue the city, and then they get rights and permits to come and do exactly what we told them we did not want them doing. So, and then it takes your hard-earned taxpayer dollars, and we spend out millions of dollars to these facilities because we didn't have these items written correctly, or we didn't deny them properly. So what the questions I'm about to ask is no disrespect to any of you, but I need to make sure that we have this ordinance written to where it is in compliance with state law and where it's in compliance with federal law. Because if it is not, then I can assure you, as soon as this is passed, there will be someone that drives directly into your district, puts up a facility just so they can turn around and sue the city. So with that being said, can the parish attorney's office please come up?
Good evening.
Hi. So can you tell me, we've heard a couple of things tonight, but I like to hear it from the attorneys. I think legal opinions should be given by people that have passed the bar, with no disrespect from anyone in here. But can you tell me, has this ordinance, is it mirror image exactly to the word of the state statute that's out there?
There's enabling legislation that was passed at the state level in Title 28, Section 25.1. And what it sets forth is this. It says that the department can establish additional forensic facilities for treatment of forensic patients in Baton Rouge as funds are appropriated by the legislature, and that the director of that facility shall, so that's not discretionary, that's mandatory, admit persons from a certain subset of the psychiatric population, and then it goes on to establish different classes of individuals. I believe that, yes, it is compliant with state law, the enabling legislation.
Okay, so you said shall, so it says, essentially what I'm gathering from you is that we have to allow these facilities, and they shall allow a subset of people to be allowed into these facilities.
Well, what you have is you have the state licensing psychiatric facilities.
Correct.
And then you have these patients that are housed in hospitals, and a hospital essentially is certifying, making a determination that it is appropriate to transition a patient.
And I get that piece, but does this ordinance mirror image whatever the state designates? So Does the state say that it shall not be located in any recognized residential subdivision? Yes or no? That's just a yes or no.
I would need to check that. I would need to check that to be absolutely certain.
When did you know this was coming before this commission? Because all these people here,
Right.
they came here to get an answer tonight.
Understand?
They came from their
Councilman.
homes, they left their jobs, they drove to this meeting. So we have said this in the past, and I will say it one more time for everyone that's listening. I do not want a parish attorney coming to this podium and telling me we need more time. I want the answers now. Was the Attorney General's office contacted? Were they contacted to get an opinion on this? Because this is a state, did your office contact the state attorney?
Let me say this. and
Yes or
I-
no? It's just a yes or no. Did you get
I
an
don't-
opinion?
I do not know.
Okay,
because
we do not know. Okay, next question. Somebody might need to call the parish attorney. Shall be located at least 1,000 feet away from any property currently used as a school, park, or residential dwelling. Does the state law say that?
That comes from the UDC, as I understand it.
Okay, does it mirror image whatever the state has? Okay, next question. Can
I
you
back up
define?
for just a minute,
Okay, go ahead, go
Councilman, and make a statement?
Sure, sure.
And Ryan, can I have you come up? And I
No,
just
no. We're not
Okay.
doing Ryan. We're asking
Okay.
the parish attorney. This is a legal opinion. This is not a planning and zoning issue for Ryan. He's not licensed as an attorney. And this is going to, in fact, affect our office. This is going to affect taxpayer dollars. No disrespect to you. I know that you're new, but we need somebody that is prepared and ready to answer these questions. We're not wasting taxpayer citizens' time, money. It's just disrespectful. So let me ask you something. Can you define what a residential subdivision is? Because where is that defined and what exactly is that?
Okay, that is a neighborhood that is platted with the Planning Commission, and that there are, as I understand it, GIS maps.
Okay,
So-
so does it have to have an HOA? Does it have to, explain what that means?
I don't believe it has to have an HOA.
All right,
So a recognized, I had the same question, and Ryan responded to me. It is a neighborhood that has a plat in the Planning Commission office, and that there are, GIS surveys.
let me ask you another question. So when we're looking at the definition of a forensic facility, it says a facility may include uses as whole and apart for assisted living, boarding, lodging, housing, congregate care facility, daycare facility, group home, hospital, or medical office clinic. Is that in the state law, or is that something that we wrote in?
I believe that this is something that we wrote in.
That's something we wrote in, so it doesn't.
I believe.
And when we wrote that in, did we consider the Fair Housing Act, the Federal Fair Housing Act, and American with Disabilities Act?
I have to assume that our office did. I have to assume that our office did. And I don't, Ms. Councilman Rocca, I was not involved in the drafting of this, and forgive me.
I understand, but look, you're here today, and again, I know you're new, so I apologize, but this is your hot seat, this is my hot seat. We all accepted these positions, and like I said from the beginning, we can't pass things and make promises to these people that have come down here only for them to have something crop up in their backyard and only for everybody else to get sued, or cropped up in a backyard in my district. It's happened. It's happened to us. And I can tell you, when it happens, these people will be wondering, well, what did the city do? How did this happen? How did permits we sat in here, we argued against this, we were promised that this wouldn't happen. And then the next thing you know, it breeds paranoia that we're doing something behind the scenes. We get accused of doing things, and it has nothing to do with us. It has everything to do with bad law. So let me ask you one more question. Would you say that this is constitutional as it stands today?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I want to make one additional point. this is a first for Baton Rouge, but there are many cities in our region, Jackson, Riley. There are probably 10 or 12 cities across the South that are doing this.
Okay, Mr. Rome, I saw you come in. Can you please come to the podium, please, sir?
For the record, Councilmember Dunn Jr. has offered to give his 5 minutes to Councilmember Walker. So continue.
Mr. Rome, I don't know if you've been watching, but I know that you stay pretty abreast of what's happening in your office. Would you say with absolute certainty that this, as it's written today, is a direct mirror of state law and is constitutional?
I don't know if it mirrors state law. I'd want to make sure that definition's correct. But if you're asking from a constitutional standpoint, I think the best thing you can do is make it as tight as possible. I think you always end up with a legal challenge. If you want me to stand up here and say, you never get a legal challenge to that, I'm not going to state that. What I'll tell you is, if y'all pass it, in whatever shape or form it is, this office is going to defend it as best we can. That's right.
What are you going to do whenever you lose over in the 19th JDC and permits are given to a facility?
I mean, I'm gonna have to deal with it. I mean, I'm gonna have to deal.
But that happens.
Oh, sure it happens. And look, my suspicion, and I don't know because I don't like to tip hands for lawyers. I don't know if we'll end up in the 19th JDC. My suspicion is we'll probably end up in federal court, but I can't predict that. Well, all I can tell you is whatever you pass, you have 100% assurances from this office that we'll defend it vigorously. I can't guarantee you a win, and I can't guarantee you that it won't get challenged.
Can you guarantee me that it's constitutional? That's all I want to know. Have you evaluated the Fair Housing Act and ADA?
I have not. I have not evaluated. I have not. I did not.
I have no further questions.
Okay.
Councilmember Banks.
So, having to fight for community such as in my district, where there have been a lot of industrial things that happen that basically impacts the quality of life of residents. So what we're talking about is impacting the quality of life of residents. And when you talk about that, you're talking about things like income and jobs, housing and education, whether or not there are have an opportunity to have a life and a work balance where you live, the interpersonal relationships where you feel free to roam in your neighborhood, build relationships with your neighbors, ride your bicycle, the kids could play outside, and you're not concerned. Conversations of that threaten your community impact the quality of life of residents. The only concern that a subdivision should have is things like infrastructure. Is the infrastructure conducive? You know, what services, pharmacy close by, grocery store, parks, recreation. Even in subdivisions, you don't want a hospital in the middle of your subdivision. You don't want anything that is a public facility where it increases the communal representation of a subdivision. That is a no-brainer. There is no way anybody, first of all, also, I would say, as a council member and the parish attorney is to advise us, we have a responsibility to look at this information before we get here. There's anytime I call a parish attorney up here, if I care about it enough, and it sounds like I've had that conversation on the phone, in an email, or whatever. I'm not going to come in a gotcha situation and ask the parish attorney. You could ask them 100 different things. The other thing is, I don't know a lawyer that would hang his hat on saying 100%, I'm gonna win a case or somebody not gonna sue me. That is, I don't see how anyone that has a law degree or practice or even watch Law and Order on TV would not know that those are not things that can ever be 100% any more than us walking out of here and saying that we're not going to get hit by a car. But the seatbelt not going to work or whatever. But I would say that I have had situations where I've been able to get a moratorium against industry because of because of the number of industry that impacts our community. Yeah, they have a right, some of them even own it. But still, there has been where business has a responsibility as well to make sure that the areas in which they operate, that they're looking out for the quality of life of their residents. As the lady, 82 years old, I know your name really well, I just can't remember it right now. Part of quality of life and the sustainability of the elderly is peace and tranquility. No one should have to wonder, even be concerned, even if it's no threat to a facility that they have paid taxes on, purchase a home. Nobody should go through that. It is our responsibility as a government agency to look out for our constituents. That matters. If it didn't matter, we don't need to have to vote. We don't need to have these conversations. Just let the state law, whatever, dictate. But none of that is mirrored as 100. That is why it's a vote. Otherwise, why are we voting? It doesn't make sense. It does. So we're talking about the quality of life of residents, where they live, where they work, where they play, where they worship. That matters to people. It matters more so to persons in African American communities in East Baton Rouge Parish that have not had a voice over these 40 years that they had representation. And now they have it. And we have a responsibility to speak
Councilman, you want to testify?
For them. Thank you. I make a motion that we deny this item.
Motion to deny by Councilmember Banks. There's a motion to deny the item by Councilmember Banks. Turn the mic on.
What I'd like to do is withdraw my motion, and I'm sure there's more discussion, and I'll reserve it for that.
Thank you. Councilmember Adams.
Thank you. In spending some time thinking about this item, I couldn't help but come to the conclusion that although we have overcome so many biases, we have broken down so many barriers, we've opened so many doors, the bigotry, the stigma, the suspicion, and the fear of mental illness remains. In 2020, Councilwoman Rocca and I, since we share the hospital district, saw thousands of patients, of COVID patients, on Essen Lane, on Bluebonnet Road. If it was the 1980s, we'd be talking about regulating an AIDS treatment facility. If it were the 60s or 70s, we might be talking about regulating where a home for unwed mothers could be located. And I've actually visited one of those home for unwed mothers, and it was in the middle of a business district, and I have to tell you, it was one of the saddest and most depressing places I've ever been. If we were in the 40s or 50s, we might be discussing a facility to treat polio. If we were in the 20s or 30s, we might be discussing where a leprosarium should be placed. The diseases change, but the fear of those who are sick doesn't change. When I look at the statutes, I see that these are people who are determined incompetent prior to trial and don't pass the Sanity Commission. These are people found not guilty by reason of insanity. These are some of the least of these. I have looked for data that would support the fact that these people frequently break out of these facilities. And I have not found data to support the fact that they frequently break out of these facilities. You know, I have to, as a council person, I hear frequently about the mentally ill that are on our streets. And I can't help but think that people who are mentally ill would not be better off in a facility where they can receive the care and be isolated if need be than they are on our streets. So I have, although I understand the concerns, I've had to check myself and ask myself, is the fear based on reality, or is it just human nature and fearing things that we don't understand and that make us uncomfortable?
Thank you, Councilman. We go to anyone else on the council. Councilmember Moat.
Ryan, can you come up? I'm sorry if it's just something you can't answer at the moment or whatever, but just from these restrictions as far as this particular thing goes and all, as far as a percentage of the city, I mean, what would you say that pretty much what would you say that it pretty much takes out of the city, of locations of these things? 80%? 90% of the city? Parish, sorry, I
I
apologize.
haven't seen a definite map to be able to determine that. I know you cannot create legal regulations or guidelines that would prohibit a proposed use from operating in the parish. I do not believe.
Correct.
I feel
You can't-
strongly
you can't
that this
discriminate
does not prohibit
against-
that there are areas where such future facilities could be cited.
Okay. I'm just looking at this from, I appreciate that. I guess I'm looking at it from a percentage. Thank you, Ryan. I'm good. Appreciate it. We've tried these kinds of things on other councils and gotten overturned. I think you're throwing a broad net over a specific thing that is going to get caught later on. I'm not saying it needs to be in a residential neighborhood. It doesn't need to be in the middle of a subdivision. But I think we're throwing such a broad net on this. You're using zoning to discriminate against a particular item. And it doesn't matter whether if you're trying to get rid of snowball stands or if you're trying to get rid of facilities like this or everything in between. When it comes down to zoning like this, you're basically saying, I can't get rid of you. I can't not allow you to build, but I can zone you so bad, there's nothing you can do to build in this area or in this parish, That's a concern for me that I have. Whether, like, again, I don't think it needs to be in neighborhoods, but I think we've thrown too much of a net over this, and I would like to see more zeroed down. I want to know where they can go in general. I want to know how much is available so that we can use that data to, just like Councilwoman Rocca and the parish attorney and everything that said that they would defend it. I want to make sure that we have the backing and we did the information that we can defend it. And I don't think we're at that point right now. My motion is to defer for 30 days.
There is a motion to defer the item for 30 days. Is there a second? Is there a second on the motion? Motion dies for lack of a second on the motion by Councilmember Knoll. Second on the motion by Councilmember Knoll. We now go to Councilmember Knoll.
Ryan, I have a question. Can you speak to the differences between a forensic facility as outlined in, what is it, Title 28? The differences between that and, I guess, the only way something like that would have been referenced prior to what we're looking to adopt here. assisted living, hospital, whatever. Can you speak to the differences?
So again, any such facility could be cited now and treated as a general hospital. General hospitals are allowed in light commercial, any heavy commercial zoning district without any additional regulations. There's no distance requirements. There's no major conditional use permits. That's how it's treated. In the study we provided last year to you, all the major cities in Louisiana are treated identical to how we currently treat it. This would be no different. What's being proposed is a very specific, specialized definition that requires licenses from the state of Louisiana for such a facility, meeting the following criteria. The director or administrator of any such facilities shall admit only those persons determined to be incompetent prior to trial and committed on recommendation of a sanity commission. Number 2, found not guilty by reason of insanity. 3, transferred from state correctional facilities. 4, who were judicially committed after being charged with a criminal offense and found incompetent to stand trial. And 5, judicially committed to and transferred from any hospital from persons having a mental illness or substance-related or addictive disorder.
Okay,
So those are the parameters of what's being considered and defined with additional regulations.
And that's how I've understood it, and I'm doing this for everybody to understand. Essentially, what we're talking about is akin to a prison for people with mental issues. Correct? I mean, that's why it's designated that way, is so that it can have probably extra security measures. Is that correct?
And there are requirements at the state level. The state does require a secured facility. There is a type of fencing, a specific height of the fencing, and on-premise security and security functions. For
Exactly, and I guess that's my point. That's why the whole reason this is being studied and discussed is because it is not the same as a hospital. Accurate? It's because everything you read and described, the fact that even the state says it's got to have security and fencing, it is absolutely something different than just a hospital. And so we recognize that. That's the whole reason we're talking about it. My question is, I have a couple more questions. When we talk about the measurement, how is that measured? From the facility's front doors, from the tract of land? How would that be measured?
From the property line of any property designated residential or recognized subdivision that's platted residential to the property line of such future facility.
Okay, do we have that same requirement for a jail or a prison?
There's not a currently separate land use designation for prisons or correctional facilities, and the reason that is because those are normally run by city or state institutions which are exempt from local zoning.
Okay, that's interesting. So state law doesn't even speak to that. And one of the main reasons, and this made me think about it, and I pulled up our GIS because we approved a rather large 1,000-home subdivision in the northern part of the parish that is directly across the street from the property that has Jetson Correctional on it. Across the street, throw a baseball to it. And so nobody batted an eye at that. And we allowed a whole subdivision to go in, and there's some across the other street too that's approved. And so why is nobody looking at a prison with hardened criminals to have restrictions, but we're looking at those who are being marginalized for in a facility where they're trying to get help? And that may be the cause or purpose. These people can't even stand trial because of how they've been determined to be. Is that something we've ever looked at or even talked to the state about looking at, to your knowledge?
Again, we don't have any local regulations. We'll be happy to look into that issue if there's a need for such a facility or such a regulation.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Banks, second time.
May I, Ryan, please? We've heard a lot about we're talking about a facility, but I notice a lot of the comments have to do with discriminating against a certain population. Could you expound on that? Will this keep persons that would be in this facility, are they being discriminated against? And also, is it does it go against ADA in any way? Because I know we have group homes in A1, even in my subdivision, but they only have 4 or 5 people there. It's not a facility, and it's probably they're probably not mandated there. But how does that work?
In my professional opinion and experience, this is a valid ordinance. It was reviewed, the study and the proposed regulations were reviewed in conjunction with the parish attorney's office. Again, the proposed regulations. There was also precedent, not in Louisiana, but there was other regional cities in the Southeast United States. That information was contained in that original study that was presented to council.
Is any segment of the population being discriminated against, is my question.
Not to my knowledge. no.
Okay. Has anyone other than reached out to you with any questions concerning ADA compliance, discrimination, or anything?
Not to my knowledge. no.
What has been the sentiments or the questions that you've been asked from the various council members?
Just to better understand it, provide a little more background information.
And you were able to do that?
References to the previous study, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Parish attorney, please. Parish attorney, what's the lady's name? I hadn't seen her before.
Well, introduce yourself so we know who you are.
Deanne Frazier.
Oh, yeah, I have heard your name before. Miss Deanne.
Yes, ma'am.
So what have been the conversations with the different council members regarding this ordinance?
I have, we had a phone conversation, Councilman
I think
Hurst.
that's attorney-client privilege. Point of order. I think that's attorney-client privilege, and I don't think that she can
No,
discuss.
I don't want her to give names.
It doesn't matter. She cannot discuss the conversations and legal advice that she gives us individually or collectively with the group.
All right.
From what I understand, any information with the parish attorney, unless it's going to the attorney general, which we have to vote on, but as council member, and I'm not asking you for names, I'm trying to get an understanding that I think that all of us are, since the law is, or, whether it's ADA compliance, are we doing anything? I'm just trying to get an understanding for all the people out here who are being told they might get a lawsuit, in which we don't care about that when we do other things. But what I want is, what have been the questions? Because I know people are not just coming today asking questions that you've had conversations prior. And we got about a minute and a half.
Honestly, Ms. Banks, we have not had conversations with individual council members.
Well, that takes that off.
Okay, so the answer to that is we've had some discussions with the Planning Commission, but that's about the extent of it.
So
and to go to your question of, I just want to point out that this could be cited in many parts of the parish. So we're focusing on it's going to be in one part of the parish.
Right.
But in reality, there's zoning across the parish where these things could be cited.
Exactly.
So that, I think, speaks to the question that you have raised about discrimination and, it being unfairly placed in one part of town or.
Yeah, absolutely. That takes
out.
it off, because that means that if there's someone that wants to put a facility in Shenandoah, will protect them.
Well,
if there's someone that wants to put it in
HC1, HC2, and they, those places are not just in North Baton Rouge.
Of course
I just
not.
want to make that point.
Of course not. But I do think, and that's what I like about it, is one of those equitable agenda items. However, because of the unequitable decisions that heavily impact the North Baton Rouge, then I certainly have a more passionate plea as it regards to it. But this is equitable. This is one of those things that if someone called me from Riverbend, I'm going to be with them. If they're in Shenandoah, I'm going to be with them. Wherever they are, if they're going to the Country Club of Louisiana, I'm going to be with them.
Provided they meet the zoning
exactly
criteria.
Because I'm all
which
about the
exist
quality of
across
life of
the
where
parish.
people buying their houses and where they live. That's
Councilmember.
important. Thank you so much.
Councilmember Coleman.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. I've sat here and heard much and put quotation marks around that word much. Talked about research, talked about a study, talked about potential threats. We've talked about near school specific Forest Heights. We've talked about Title 28, 25.1 that had some substance to it. We've talked about senior citizens, of which I am one. We've talked about the quality of life, the quality of life. And when we talk about that, we ought to be thinking about everybody's quality of life and not a selfish point here, but everybody's quality of life. We've talked about putting the patients, putting these people basically out in pastures like they are animals. I think some folk must be watching too much TV, Godzilla. These are human beings. In Jackson, there's the forensic hospital up there, and it's been there for a long time. My grandmother worked there. I saw many of the people there. As a matter of fact, she ended up bringing one of the patients away from there to live with her, Miss Ruby. And Miss Ruby had a great life there. We're talking about blocking economic development. We talk about that all the time, about the need for economic development. So we're talking about blocking that, folk getting jobs. We're talking about blocking education, where there very well could be an alignment, because this population is growing. We're talking about where there could be an alignment with our universities, with our high school children, where they can be a part of this. We're talking about blight, so just don't do nothing with the buildings and let blight grow. Just today, a 35-year-old woman came to the Leo Butler Center, and that she is dual diagnosed, hungry, walking the streets, 3 months pregnant, husband dead. But guess what? She's still a human being in need of services. This is no cookie cutter, y'all. This is no cookie cutter for everybody throughout. You have homeowners associations, and let them decide something on this if that be the case. When I think about the Fair Housing Act, I don't care what anybody say, this is discriminatory. When you look at that flyer that went out, and it said, I was appalled at that flyer, it said no forensic psychiatric hospital. So you already pointing at a population of people that should not have been. And so, Ryan, come, I just have one little question for you. And yes, you may ask people, you may say you wouldn't want it. Know what? District 10 need it. If you don't believe District 10 needs it, I want you to go over to the bus stations, Greyhound and Cats. I want you to go over on Florida Boulevard at MG Grocery. Listen up. I want you to go to St. Vincent de Paul over there. I want you to go to the Trevor Sims Bridge that we've cleaned up, and they're right back under there. sane folk don't do that. I want you to go over in Northdale. I want you to go over by the lake where they're up in the bushes. See, but y'all don't know nothing about that because you haven't traveled there. I want you to go to Spanish Town. I want you to go over there on Weller Avenue at the Chase Bank. And when I took, yes sir, please. And when I took this position, and I can stand on all 10, when I took this position, I did not say
That don't mean I gotta give you yes.
that I'm,
Apologies.
I did not say that I was going to represent those that were, so sane. When I took this on, I'm representing the constituents of District 10, all 37,000. And so this population is included. Ryan, do we have a facility here right now of this nature in Baton Rouge?
I'm not aware of one that's currently operating. There was discussion about a previous facility on Summerall. I can't state that they're open and operating with forensic patients or not. I'm not sure if they have a license or not from the state of Louisiana or the permit office.
Thank you. Another thing is, and just like so many of you and us, if you got your medicine, you're in a better place. You're in a better spot. It may not be mental medicine that you may be taking, but even that blood pressure medicine, you're in a better spot because you took that. So I would rather see this population in a facility where they are cared for and get their medicine, and you wouldn't have to worry about them, as opposed to all of these that are out here and not receiving services. The other thing that we must be mindful of, we're not talking about some far-reached people. All of us got some of these folk in our family, whether you want to acknowledge it or not. And so, I didn't bother you. I didn't bother you. And so with that being said, to say no, just a straight out no for all of this, it concerns me. And know what? This is personal, y'all. So don't be pulled into something. Don't be pulled into something and you lose all of who you are.
Councilmember Moak.
I'm not sure if this is for planning or parish attorney, but I just want to be prepared. The question is, we had a discussion a while back about group homes in neighborhoods, and we were told we can't discriminate, we can't, rule them out. We have to allow them because of housing and everything else. And these are homes that are in the middle of neighborhoods, which we actually don't even know what's in these group homes. They just show up, and we were told there's nothing we could do about it. So why does this not fall under, this not fall into the same category? As far as business goes, I know there could be mental people in those group homes. There could be medically disabled people in those group homes. There could be all different types, but we're not allowed to discriminate in the middle of a neighborhood. I've got Sherwood Forest that's got them every other block. But yet, we're not allowed to document it. We're not allowed to note it. What's the difference between, why can't we zone those out, but we can zone this out of existence?
So there was a court case dealing with that, and those are very specific protected classes in a residential setting, acting as a residential dwelling. This is a facility that has a correctional component that's licensed by the state. That's different.
So we have group homes. There's specific people that can live there. Or it's just general as far as what can be in a group home in the middle of a neighborhood?
They have to demonstrate that they're a protected class under the Fair Housing Act.
Would this be a protected class that we're zoning out tonight?
I can't say if all these patients or some of these patients don't have disabilities that would be a protected class.
I would think mental would be a protected class, so are we setting, again, it goes back, I think we're throwing too broad of a net. If you'd like to say, Greg, if you have something to say on what I just asked?
Not really.
Okay.
Just standing there in case you had a question.
Okay. I think he answered it, but, again, and he narrowed it down to protected class. I'm just going to go back to my deferral till we can specifically nail this down. I think we're getting ourselves into something that we're not prepared for. We have these facilities in these homes in the middle of neighborhoods that we can do nothing about, but we can do something about the mentally, people that can't withstand trial mentally. But we can have group homes in the middle of neighborhoods that we can do nothing about, that we don't know what's in there.
Councilmember Gode.
Thank you, sir. Ryan, would you mind coming up? Ryan, you referenced in some of your earlier statements there were 4 options that were presented. Can you review those 4 options, please?
So in the previous study that was presented to council and given to you back late last year, the 4 options that came out of that study at the end of the study, in addition to the research from the other cities, were to, and these were again for consideration by the council, were number 1, to maintain the current practice that forensic psychiatric facilities would be continued to be considered as a hospital use. So therefore allowed in any light commercial or heavy commercial zoning district without any further regulations. Number 2, introduce a new use with a correctional component and allow in industrial zoning districts. Number 3, introduce a new use with a correctional component and allow in predetermined zoning districts, adding additional distance limitations. The distance limitations is currently used to provide relief where conflicting uses or abutting uses are determined not to be compatible. Number 4, introduce a new use as a correctional component and allow in predetermined zoning districts with distance limitations and visual screening. The visual screening is currently incorporated as buffer yard requirements. Additional landscaping would be required to provide relief to adjacent land uses and provide a therapeutic impact to the residents of the facility.
And the option we're discussing today is option number 4, the most restrictive. Do I have that correct?
That's correct, Councilman. At a previous meeting, the council directed us to proceed to draft a draft ordinance for consideration consistent with item 4.
And I'm sorry, a couple more questions. Would any of the other options, well, let me ask, options 2 or 3 satisfy what's being sought here for this particular area, this particular neighborhood, and require a facility to locate in a particular zoned area?
So 2 and 3 were adding some restrictions. They increased in intensity as you build to option 4. Mm-hmm. So option 4 was the most restrictive out of the options considered in that study.
Okay. And option 2, new use within industrial, would that, let's say hypothetically, if that were adopted, would that require a facility to come and get any sort of special use permit?
No, they would be allowed by right in an industrial designated zoning district.
Could there be an option to require any type of special use or conditional use permit with any of the options you outlined?
You certainly could. You certainly could.
So you could put in the specific zonings, for instance, industrial, and we, council, could also add for these specific types of facilities a conditional use permit that would put additional requirements?
That's essentially what's being proposed today, is this use, defining the use, assigning it to very specific zoning districts, mm-hmm. and those zoning districts up for consideration tonight are heavy commercial 1 and heavy commercial 2.
Mm-hmm.
and adding distance requirements from parks and residential uses.
Is that essentially what the conditional use permit would do? I'm sorry, I honed in on the distance requirements.
In addition to that, this option before you also requires, in addition to that, a major conditional use permit that requires public hearings before the planning commission and the council.
Okay.
So again, assigned to specific zoning districts, adding 1,000-foot distance requirement, and even if you meet those two criteria, have the correct zoning, have the distance limitations, you would still be required to come before, as for a major conditional use permit, before the planning commission and council.
Under option 4?
Correct.
Not under options 1 through 3?
Correct.
Okay.
Major conditional use was not included in that.
It could be.
It certainly could be, yes.
Okay. Ryan Hang, I may have another question come to me, if you don't mind. Mrs. Frazier, if you would please come up. The I will go in. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Is she still here?
Oh, there you are. The population that would be served under the forensic psychiatric hospital, do I have that correct, or am I saying the wrong term? Under this, the population that would be served, are they a protected class?
You know, insane, have mental incapacity. No, I don't think so.
I mean, I appreciate that. If you have anything to add,
I think that's going to be the problem. I think under the
All right.
ADA,
Then
they may be considered as a protected
okay.
class.
Then I think we need some more time on this.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think that's
this
what
is-
might happen.
This is
And that's what the argument's going to be. Yep.
okay. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Noel.
Mr. Rohn. I have a question, Mr. Rohn.
Brandon.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. Looking at this with the major conditional use permit, have we had in the past, from what you can remember, issues where we have suits where it was found that we were arbitrary in the way we were treating something versus another time?
I don't know if the finding was arbitrary because it was before my time, but we lost the case at federal court. It was Odyssey. I think it was either Odyssey or Oxford House. We lost that case.
Okay.
And that's why I mentioned federal court.
And maybe not even us, but just in general.
Councilman Goday.
Well, he can do that on his time.
Okay.
If
I
we
think you want to know, but
that's fine.
Y'all keep cutting me
If I got
off,
enough time, that's fine.
Yeah.
But in general, that could be an issue that we could end up in trouble if we're arbitrary in the way we're treating different instances. Correct?
if it's considered to be a protected class.
Would you agree that allowing this body to treat it not only to have parameters where this zoning, this many feet, this many distance, but also we have to approve it as a conditional use permit, opens the door for us to be arbitrary?
I'm not going to agree or disagree with you. What I'm going to do is just advise you that you're going to probably end up in court and that question's going to get answered. It may get answered favorably for you.
Mm-hmm.
It may not.
Okay.
It's not a matter of me agreeing with you or disagreeing with you.
Okay. Do you think having it available to, if something meets all the requirements and it passes, is that more or less likely to be, would you rather defend that, or would you rather defend it where we used other reasoning beyond that?
I don't want to get sued.
Okay.
I don't want the city to get sued. What I would tell you is I think it's a valid attempt to try to tighten it up. I mean, I think that's what Councilman Hurst is trying to do. I don't want to speak for him, but
No, and I don't disagree.
yeah, I mean,
all I'm getting at
tried
is
to tighten it up and do the best.
I
best
think
possible.
all I'm getting at is I think having the conditional use permit above that creates a scenario where anytime this comes up, if somebody finds a property, without question, anybody who's around that property is going to oppose. You're going to have a room full of people, and we're going to have a tendency to say no for that reason rather when they met every other requirement. And that part gives me a little hesitation.
Yeah, but you're
for
asking
that
me-
reaning.
Yeah, you're asking me to speculate.
No,
I'm
I
just not
know.
gonna do it.
I understand.
Okay.
Okay, so with my remaining time, if you want to answer Mr. Goday's question.
I just want to tell you the difference. It could possibly be a protective class. The difference is, and Mr. Holcomb reminded me, there's a corrections component to this. I just want to let you know that, okay? So there's a possibility it could be a protected class, but the difference here means that there is a correctional component to it, is the way it's written. I just want you to.
Darryl asked for it all. Councilmember Hurst.
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank the people that showed up to cover and represent the area that they live in. And the reason why we don't have other folks around here affected is because they didn't have this possibility to come up across the street where they live, work, or where they play. But my job is to protect you. And like they said, it is personal. So, and the reason why it's personal is because this was my family doing this. And I no longer can go to Thanksgiving and spend time with my family because I chose to do the right thing by the public than to pick it up, because there's no wrong way to do right and no right way to do wrong. So yes, it is personal. It became a point where I've been in the same gymnasium with some people, don't even speak to them, who I used to share Thanksgiving dinner with. But I did that for you because I wanted to do what's right by my community. So thank you all for being here today, and I agree that it's personal. Now, a couple of things have changed since it started. We have a new parish attorney. We have a new attorney that supports planning and zoning board. So that's why they don't have the answers today. But I did, because I asked all the questions that we're talking about now, and I do support the deferral, by the way, so y'all will have to come back, because I want everybody's questions answered, because I know what they are. Because of the corrections component, it does not have an ADA or fair housing component to it, where group homes do. So the answer to that is no. Just no different than ADA in a prison, or the same way you'd have to have ADA in a forensic psych hospital. The difference in traditional mental health and what we're talking about here, these people went in front of a judge because they were accused of committing a crime. We're not talking about homeless people that fought in a war and are suffering with PTSD. We are talking about somebody that could have been a serial rapist, serial murderer, serial arsonist, and who could not go and stay in trial. That's a complete different thing what we're talking about. We're not talking about somebody who had their mother passed and they couldn't handle the grief, so now they're homeless because they don't know how to deal with the traumas that were faced by that. It's a completely different subset of the population. We are talking about, and if I wish Justin, I texted it to him during the event, the hearing, but he posted it up there, and I know it's by memory. The forensic psychiatric hospital contract that was provided by the state said that these people possessed aggressive and dangerous behaviors and were mentally unstable to stay in trial. We're not talking about the homeless guy, because my homeless people, I love them to death. We feed them every day. As a matter of fact, actually come to the mic, please. Quickly, please. Please tell them what we'll be starting at the Charles Kelly on Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
The Charles R. Kelly Community Center will have a feeding outreach program to the homeless and needy in the area. So,
why are we doing that, Ashley?
because across the street at Redemption St. Gerard, there's over 400 citizens in District 5 that is actually homeless and in need of food.
And what days do they feed over there?
They feed on Tuesday and Thursday.
So we're going to do what, Ashley?
Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
Thank you so much. That's good. Thank you. Thank you. So my point of telling you that is when you talk about people who are inhumane and when you talk about people that don't support homeless, that's not what this is about. It's about protecting the only high-performing school in North Baton Rouge, which is a blue ribbon school. And the reason why that school is in question is because it shared a fence line with this property. Okay? So I've answered a couple of questions on that. Now, my council colleagues had several months. By the way, did y'all hear what they said? They previously approved the same thing that they're denying today? Yeah. Which means it came before the entire body. They picked number 4. I didn't pick it. We picked it. Ryan, can you, parish attorney, 1 second, please. We have rules in place. How many votes does it take to get something approved to come to the meeting today? And maybe it's a Ryan question. Ryan. I got time. Ryan, y'all know. I apologize for the aggressiveness. Y'all know I get passionate about this. It's not. I respect everybody. So how many votes? How many votes does it take to pass it, Ryan?
7 affirmative votes.
So how many votes do we have to make it to today, Ryan?
I'm sorry, what was?
After you gave the full report, how many votes do we have to have it presented today?
It would need 7 votes today to pass.
How many votes would it need today to pass, Ryan?
7.
Thank you. All right. Now, let me tell y'all something. When they talk about distance limitations and stopping growth in communities and all that other kind of stuff, guess what? It's 1,000 feet between sand pits in the neighborhood. A sand pit. We're not talking about people who went to court and had charges and were unfit to stay in trial. And listen, guess what? Our stuff right now, if we had to go before the board and we had to go back to the 1950s when all this old stuff we're talking about was built, we would change our minds. We would. But it's not the 50s, not the 60s, not the 70s. It's 2024. There's 1,000 feet between strip clubs. We talk about a booming economy. Let's not discriminate. They need jobs too now. Okay? 500 feet between motor vehicle repair and another 300 feet between motor vehicle repair. In addition, it is, let me go back. I'm missing one. It is 300 feet for serving alcohol. So let's not talk about what distance limitations don't exist. Let's talk about the ones that do. And with that being said, I'm okay with Miss Ruby, Miss Linda, and Miss Brenda being 1,000 feet away from a neighborhood, a school, or a church. And guess what? I'm going to invite them into my house too when they get healed. When they are able to come to a community and they are not in a position to be a danger to society, which the judge has said that they were. And for people who don't know, I do consulting for mental health. So I am not against them. As a matter of fact, I extremely support mental health, substance abuse issues, PTSD, trauma in homes, child abuse, child negligence. So all of that stuff I'm for. We talked about the state versus the local. We have the ATC on the state level. We have the ABC on the local level. So even though the state has mandates, guess who else does? The local has mandates too to make sure we can do what we need to do as a parish and have the autonomy to determine how we want to serve people. Guess what? LDH is the one that licenses hospitals, right? But they have to follow the same UDCs that we're talking about today. So there is approval on the state level. This is constitutionally correct. And there's no conflicts with ADA, and I'm supporting the deferral 100%, because all of this stuff will be answered. Because I asked these same questions before the attorney was no longer with the parish attorney's office, and I know the answer for them. So, I got a lot of notes here, y'all. I just want to make sure I hit all of them. So let me tell y'all what happened in Forest Heights. I love me some Miss Breckenridge. She does a great job over there. The previous principals did. We volunteer all the time. The minute that this facility came up, we had kids de-enroll. We had teachers put in their 2-week notice. We had the most high-performing, blue ribbon, A+ school, one of the top 3 in the parish, one of the top 10 in the state, about to crumble because we were making a decision for kids and affecting where they live, work, and play. And one of the things that was discussed from the state level is that they would have to go into lockdown when things would happen next door. That 1,000 feet limitation restricts their ability to have to do that and allows them to go on with classroom as normal. And we did talk about Aztec Cove on Highland Road. We did talk about Magwoods. We did talk about the tire shredder plant. We did talk about the New Dreams Club on Tom Drive. We have talked about several things in here where we didn't want those things. And we can, guess what? We can get sued for those too. Because we chose not to give a liquor license to a business because guess what? It had a bad history of operating. So I would support it, and I support the lawsuit. I supported Councilman Dunn because it was the right thing for his district. Guess what? I supported Rowdy Goday and the people of the country club. Guess why? Because it was the right thing for his district. I've supported Councilwoman Chawna Banks with the tire shredder plant because it was the right thing for, and everybody up here. So we all have issues and emotions that go into this because we love the people that put us in office. And these are all good people up here, man. We all make we make tough decisions from time to time. We don't always agree with each other, but they love their constituents. And today I'm asking them to love mine. The people that were affected by this facility, not the people that weren't. And for that reason, I will support the deferral because I do want the parish attorney. I think it's unfair for Deanne to be thrown into this. Greg's been here. I've been a little hard on Greg. Greg's been here how long? About a month now, Greg, as lead. Give him time to really get he's drinking through a fire hose right now. I can imagine that. So give them the opportunity to do the deep dive that they need to do to come back and make an informed decision. So I support that deferral. Thank you.
All right, we have a motion on the floor to defer the item. Councilmember Moak. I got Councilmember Hudson ready to speak, but I want to ask you a question. The deferral is to when?
I would like, the original motion was for a deferral for 30 days, but I think after all the discussion and everything, if I could amend that motion for 60.
60 days. All right, 60 days is, you keep your second. Councilmember Hudson.
Ryan, if you would come up. And I guess if Greg, just be close. I don't know if I'm going to need Greg, but if he'd just be close. Ryan, it was talked about earlier that I think the community that's here. The big concern is that the facility next to the school. You stated earlier that it can continue to operate, right? It's essentially grandfathered in.
If it's legally established, it would be.
Okay. And so as I'm reading this, and particularly it's section 9.4.5, subsection B, where it says, shall be located at least 1,000 feet from any property currently used as a school, park, or residential dwelling. You further went to describe the distance requirement from a residential dwelling as property line to property line. I find that particularly limiting. So for the benefit of the people that are here that have a particular concern about this one property, it really strikes me that this one property, since it's grandfathered in, if we pass this becomes the hot spot. This becomes the place where this facility is going to be. I mean, I'm looking at, while we were sitting here, I pulled up the property tax assessor's website so that I could measure the distance of property lines from the old Greenwell Springs Hospital to the nearest residences. You can't hardly get anything on this site, which is very rural. It's out in unincorporated part of the parish. It may be technically being central, but a very rural part of the parish. I mean, it was historically that type of facility, and you can't find it. So that's my concern is we're setting this up as if we're doing everybody here some kind of favor, and I don't think we are. I think we are extremely limiting. Hang on, I've got the floor.
Hey, I want to give a point.
I've still got the floor.
I was going to give you a point of clarification.
Well, I'm going to give my point of order that I have the floor and finish my thought, and then if Councilman Cole wants to, whatever. But that's my concern is that we've got this one facility where this is going to continue to happen regardless. And then we're setting ourselves up with a situation where I know for my district, there's nowhere in my district where you've got 1,000 feet from a property line of a residential dwelling to a facility. Furthermore, if you're limiting it to HC1 and then the other zoning classification, you really don't have an opportunity to do that anywhere. So we're setting it up as if we're not being discriminatory, but this is so limited that I just don't see how we're being anything but discriminatory. That's my problem. I'm open to looking at different ways to do this. I understand the concerns of those residents. I get the cry that you wouldn't want it in your neighborhood. I understand that. Certainly, if you want to say this can't be in a residential subdivision, I think we could all get behind that real quick. But this is way too far-reaching for me. I'll support the deferral.
You want to make a point of clarification, Councilman?
I did, and Dwight, I apologize for interrupting you. I didn't want to change what you said, but I wanted to make sure that you understood that the license was never provided, so it does not consider to be grandfathered in.
Councilmember Adams.
So Brian, that was my question for you, because you're using a phrase that you don't normally use. And so I feel, you keep saying if it's legally established. Do you have knowledge that it isn't legally established?
I do not.
Okay, so I'm just, is there a reason why you keep, you've never used that phrase before?
The proof would be on the applicant or the property owner to provide documentation that they have either a proper license from the permanent office and/or a proper license from the state establishing such a facility.
Have you been a part of conversations discussing whether it was legally established or not?
There's
Is that
been
why you're
questions
qualifying?
whether or not they have been, but to my knowledge, I do not know.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we have a motion on the floor to defer the item for 60 days. Motion was made by Councilmember Moak, seconded by Councilmember Noel. Are there any objections to the deferral? Are there any objections to the deferral? There are objections to the deferral. We're going to vote on the machines on the deferral. We're going to vote on the machines.
All right, we're opening the machines to defer the item for 60 days to May 15th. Machines are open. Motion fails.
Councilmember Coleman, you want to speak? All right, the motion failed. Now, Justin, would you like to tell us where we are?
We only have one motion made, so if there's no other motion, we didn't have a motion passed, so the item essentially fails if no other motion is made. It would have to be reintroduced, redone.
Okay. Go ahead, Councilmember, go ahead.
It would have to be reintroduced under a different format, or the exact same thing could come back and be reintroduced in 2 weeks, hypothetically.
In my understanding, it could be reintroduced the same way it is now.
All right. Well, having said that, if there are no other motions, is there go ahead, Councilman Moak.
It can be reintroduced as it is now and/or changed?
Correct.
Thank you.
All right, is there, Ryan, you want to say something? Okay. Ryan shook his head like, hell no. What you got?
Hey, point of personal privilege. I want to thank everybody who came out today to support the item. We know what you did. We know why you did it. We thank you for that. It will come back up at some point, and hopefully at that point we'll get the support. Which it dying today is no different than a deferral. I'll bring it back up the same way. Give us time to talk about it as a body and put something together that provides a collective view to service the entire parish. But I do want to thank y'all for showing up today. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn. So moved by Councilmember Coleman, seconded by the chair. Thank you very much for coming on.
Yeah.